Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this episode, I have Jay Aggabao. Jay is currently the Associate Athletic Director at Santa Clara and an extremely talented self-described hobbyist photographer. Jay most recently served as a Senior Manager of Football Performance at the Mamba Sports Academy, where he oversaw all aspects of performance for the elite football programs, including the NFL Combine and Draft Prep, NFL offseason, and special projects. Jay served as the head strength and conditioning coach for the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League from 2017 to 2018, and the team earned the 2017 Grey Cup championship. From 2013 to 2017, he was a strength and conditioning coach for the St. Louis and Los Angeles Rams. Jay and I talked about one fateful night where answering the phone changed his direction, his passion for what he does, and what picking up the camera brings to his life. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by Harlow. Harlow is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because Harlow believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at Harlow Creators or online at www.harlow.com. And don't forget to use our discount code Tyson10 to save 10% on your order.
Hi, my name is Jay Aggabao. I am currently the Associate Athletic Director for Sports Performance at Santa Clara University. That's my day job. And I describe myself as a hobbyist, photographer, golfer, and just, generally interesting individual. Or at least I pretend to be. I am currently living in the East Bay, Hayward, California. Born and raised on the island of Guam and Palau. That's actually how I ended up getting my citizenship. And then I moved to the United States when I was 17. And since then, I've joined the military, got into sports performance, had a chance to coach in the NFL, and now I'm back in college sports.
Wow, that's a story, my friend. So what brought you to the U.S.? Was that just a new experience, or was that something where you were just looking to start and build your life?
Yeah, so, as I said in the beginning, I was born on Guam, raised in Palau and Guam. The backstory to that is my parents were actually missionaries on small islands of Palau, beautiful tropical islands in the South Pacific. And when they had my older sister, or attempted to have my older sister, she was born on Palau but died during birth. Just really tough medical conditions, hospital facilities, etc. And so when they were expecting me about a month before my birth, my parents decided to go to Guam, better facilities, the potential for a bigger support system. They had friends there. And so when I was born, I was born on Guam, got that U.S. citizenship, but then went back to Palau and lived there for the first 10 years of my life. Then I lived on Guam from 10 to 17. And unfortunately, during my high school years, I became somewhat of I guess we can describe it as a troublemaker. 4 or 5 high schools in the span of 4 years. And on Guam, I got myself into quite a bit of trouble, enough that my parents felt it was better to send me off to friends in the U.S. to try and live a better life and get away from the things that were dragging me down. So at 17, I moved to Colorado with no family. Just went to a boarding school that my parents scrapped and saved to get me to. And that was my first taste of living in America.
And now all these years later, look at you go.
Thanks.
What drew you to sports performance?
So for sports performance, that's the best. That's a good question. So what I do these days is I do still work hands-on with a couple teams in Santa Clara, namely their volleyball and baseball team, helping the student athletes get bigger, faster, stronger. And I run the entire department now. I cut my teeth early on in football, and that's kind of what got me started and how I kind of shaped my career before getting into this current position. I started out as an intern at Washington State University after I'd gotten out of the Navy. And that's kind of where I got my first taste of deciding that sports performance was something I wanted to do for my career.
That's super cool. So you just followed that path. You got your training. You started loving it. How was it transitioning from, a kid moving to Colorado? You go to the Navy. You find what you want to do, and I mean, it's not like you just call up a team and go, "Hey, yeah, this is what I do. Hire me." And NFL teams don't just open doors. So how did those doors open?
I think to kind of talk about it first, I got to give a little backstory there. The whole deciding what you want to do, I'll be honest, it's taken me forever to figure out what I wanted to do. My last high school in Colorado, the one my parents sent me to, I ultimately got kicked out of, and I had to end up getting a GED. I somehow got into a college and thought I wanted to be a business finance major. Keyword thought. And then September 11 happened. So I feel patriotic, grateful for the opportunity I had in America. I decided to join the Navy. Well, 5 years later, I'm bored and decide to get out. Don't know what I want to do. I actually started college initially trying to be a sports agent. That didn't sit well with me, just kind of the office type of job. So I started getting into sports performance and interning. And during my first internship, when I did graduate, the next step in sports performance traditionally is to go on and become a graduate assistant at a school, getting more experience, getting your master's degree. And that was my first time dealing with disappointment in my career where there were no opportunities available for me. So I ended up staying at Washington State University for a year as an intern before going and becoming a graduate assistant at Illinois State University. Had a good run there. And as I was getting ready to finish up my second year, it was the start of the fall of, I believe, 2012. You traditionally start applying for jobs all over the place as a strength coach. And I still have a box of letters in storage somewhere. There's like 40 to 50 letters of rejection notes. And so it was really discouraging. I started also cold calling coaches, trying to just get my foot in the door, even if they didn't have jobs open. And I ended up getting a hold of this gentleman named Rock Gullickson, who at the time was the head strength coach for the St. Louis Rams. And out of all the teams I cold called, he was the only one that actually called me back. Didn't have any opportunities, but called me back, and I was very grateful for that. And we stayed in touch, and a couple months later, I met him at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. He still didn't have any opportunities, but, I was still connecting and just expressed my interest at working for him. And eventually he called me and said, "Hey, if you could get down here for an interview, Coach Fisher might have something." And so that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. I started out as an intern making $1,000 a month, going into debt. And that was tough, but, great support from my wife as I did that. And then eventually they created a full-time position for me. And that's kind of what's jump-started the success from a career standpoint.
That's incredible. It just shows like determination. How much, if you have determination and a love for something and you put your heart and soul into it, you can create an opportunity for yourself. So I want to congratulate you on that, man. That's amazing. That's so good for people to hear. How long were you in the NFL for?
So
how long did you coach in there?
Yeah, I coached for 4 years. I ended up as an intern in the 2013 season. And then I was full-time from the 2014, 15, and 16 season. And then I was fired shortly after the Super Bowl in 2017. And that was to be expected. In the NFL, whenever a coaching staff gets fired, Coach Fisher was fired during the middle of the 2016 season. You expect that the entire support staff's going to get let go. So fortunately for me, I had signed a 2-year deal, so I was still getting paid even after I got fired. And that's when I made my move to Canada, and I coached up there for 2 years in the Canadian Football League.
With what team?
I was with the Toronto Argonauts, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was fortunate to win a championship in my first season. Didn't do so well the second season. And then Following that, I decided to move back home to LA, and I ended up working for Mamba Sports Academy. If some of your listeners may be familiar with the Mamba, Kobe Bryant, that was
The
his.
legend.
Yep, the legend. That was his sports performance facility. I got the opportunity to work there for 2 years, 1 year prior to his passing, and then a year after he passed away tragically.
Rest in peace, Kobe. And man, I can't remember his daughter's name. I feel horrible.
Gianna.
But, Gianna, yes.
Yeah, Gigi. Yep.
Tragic, man. Tragic.
Yeah.
I remember hearing it on the radio, and I was like, that can't be true, brother. That can't be true. So when did you decide that after you worked for the Mamba Sports Academy, coming into 20, that would have put you into 2018?
No, I was at Sports Academy 2018 through 2020. So like the 18 year, 19, and 20. And then I started making my transition to Santa Clara at the end of 20. And I actually officially started here at 21.
Okay, perfect. I have friends who played in the NFL, and I know from talking to them about the stresses. You know, if you're not a number 1 or 2, you have stresses on you every time you get put on the field. And it sounds like that's the same thing you hear from the support staff. You only are as good as what's going to happen with that coach, and then you have that worry, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I'd say that's a fact for most of the sports staff, whether that's the position coaches or strength and conditioning, sports performance. I think ultimately winning solves everything. And in this day and age where, money is paid to the winners, if you don't have a winning record, you don't have a job, essentially.
Yeah, man, that must have put some stress and strain on you.
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. I mean, especially considering that for most of the early part of my career, from 2011 through 2016, my wife and I lived apart because I was chasing that career. And financially, when you're at GA, you're not making any money. My first year as an intern in the NFL, I was making $1,000 a month. So there was no point in her leaving her steady job and moving out to where I was. And so we had to go through that sacrifice as well. And that was definitely a challenge.
I could imagine, man. Like, my wife is my rock. So, I mean, I could being a part like that must have put, in dark times or in happy times, it's really hard not to come home and be able to share it instantly. Have to share it over a telephone. So, man, I commend you. It's an amazing feat that not a lot of people can handle that. Right? So this is all stuff that's creating who you are. It's giving you that grit and determination to show that you are willing to risk everything to chase a career and chase a dream. And that's kind of like what I build everything on. It's jumping in and just going for it and hoping and praying and making sure everything happens. 'Cause I'll do anything for my kids. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to, because my kids aren't going to suffer. Right? So, I love hearing that people chase those stories. But I can pretty much guarantee you had some strain and struggles in the mental health aspect during these times.
Yeah, that's the stuff that doesn't get really discussed. Is ultimately I was having what I would call a rather fast rise in my career. There's a lot of coaches that will grind their entire sports performance careers trying to get to the NFL or a top position in college or whatever it may be. And, I got there fairly quickly, dealt a lot with imposter syndrome, just always questioning if I deserve to be there. And that's something, like for me, I mentioned to you earlier in our previous conversations and in messages, like whether or not I should even come on this podcast, right? Because who am I as a photographer? And so that was
You're
kind
my
of
brother,
like,
and that's what you are, bro.
I
That's what
appreciate
it
that.
is.
I
It's about your
appreciate that.
story.
I appreciate that.
I suffer from the same thing. So when I started this podcast, I've said it numerous times, man, that imposter syndrome and feeling like, why am I doing this? Who's going to listen? And it took everything in my power to push upload on those first few episodes. But then I get, you sent me voice memos, and man, you're like, dude, that episode was so good. Like, thank you. This is great. That means everything to me, because that means I'm letting my authentic self out for the first time in my life. I'm not sugarcoating. I'm not catering to people that are around me. I'm being who I am, and who I am is I care about everybody. I care about the world. I care about what's happening. And then the people that are on here all become like my inner circle.
That's
and
dope.
it just becomes this brotherhood, right? And I just want to say, dude, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you did, what you're showing, and what you're telling in your story gives everybody hope. It shows if we just stay nose to the grindstone and focus and not be afraid to cold call, because that's scary. Man, you can make stuff happen. So don't ever think you have imposter syndrome, man. You're a fucking idol.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
No, man, dude, I'm serious with you. Like, what you did shows the youth, like, man, okay, I'm playing video games, but I really want to work in the NFL. I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. I've done this. I'm going to start calling these people. Somebody may call me back and just give me a chance, right?
And that's ultimately what it is. I mean, you just need a chance. And, I think kind of reflecting on your question about the challenges and the mental health. I know we're rambling a little bit here, but ultimately that's why I think I'm where I am today, is because people gave me chances. And for a long time, I took that for granted. I'll admit that. That's why it's like kind of reflecting on everything. Yes, I got a lot of chances, but I took them for granted. I thought I was hot shit. I was good. I'm here. I'm doing all this shit. I'm coaching the NFL. Yeah, we got fired, but then I turn around and get a head strength coaching job in the CFL. We win a championship in my first year there, and I'm riding high. And sometime the fall of 2018 is when it actually hit me that I really wasn't that good. And that, those were the thoughts that crept into my head. I really wasn't that good. I didn't deserve to be here. And admittedly so, probably just ignoring it for the longest time. I'd been dealing with depression, anxiety, and never asked for help. I mean, that just alpha male mentality, having been in the military, growing up the way I did, I just never thought to seek help. And I still remember, and I've talked about this on another podcast that I get, but it was fall of 2018. It was August. I went down to visit a friend of mine that was the head strength coach for at the time, the Redskins, now the Commanders. And went and visited him, had a great time. And for some reason, something clicked during that drive. I drove down from Toronto to Virginia, where they were at. And on my way back, I decided, you know what? This isn't worth it anymore. I should end my life. But selfishly, so I also didn't want to feel like leaving a note or writing anything to anybody. Years prior, in 2007, I'd had a good friend take his own life, and I dealt with a lot of guilt from that, because this is a roundabout story, but I dealt with a lot of guilt from that because over the course of a weekend, he had called me 2 to 3 times, and I was just always busy and never called him back. And Monday night, I get a hysterical call. He's taken his own life. And so that's kind of changed how I approach things, I guess. And I lived with a lot of guilt from that. And I felt like it just wasn't worth living anymore. And so I was actually driving, and I had a plan in mind. There was a series of highway. I can't remember where it was at, getting close to Pittsburgh, where it's mountainous, and I could easily drive off the side of the road. And because my friends and family all know that I like to drive at night, typically when I'm going from destination to destination on a road trip, I'll drive from 10 p.m. till whatever in the morning, so I'm avoiding traffic. So my plan was to drive off the road. And I was an exit away when a guy at the time, who I would just describe as an acquaintance, for some reason called me up. And I don't know why the hell I answered his call either, because we really weren't that close. But he called me, and I don't remember what the conversation was ultimately about, but he could sense something was wrong, and he asked me to pull over to the side of the road. He's like, dude, just give me a minute. Just talk to me. And so, I don't remember the details. So he's probably better at telling the story, but he ended up staying on the phone with me and calling a friend of his who's a psychiatrist. And this is like the middle of the night. His friend answered, got on the phone with me, talked me down, and kind of helped me realize at that time, right? Like I still obviously dealt with the issues and the mental health challenges, but in that moment that it's probably a dumb move. And when I got back to Toronto, helped set me up with someone to see. It was really helpful that Coach Tressman, who was my head coach at the time, I explained everything to him. He let me leave work, practices, whenever, so I could get in and get appointments and ultimately get the help that I needed.
Oh, I'm glad you did, man. So many people, especially men in this world, we have this preconceived notion that, like you said, alpha male status. You can't talk to anybody. Push your feelings down. Who cares? And I talked to a therapist for the first time since I was like a little kid a few months back. And dude, it opened some doors, and it also brought some clarity. So I'm so grateful that you accepted that call. I'm grateful for him reaching out when he did. Sometimes, man, it just takes a buddy, right? You just grab that phone. That something told you to pick up the phone that night. So I appreciate you sharing that story. It's tough. It's tough to talk about, but more people need to be, more people need to understand it's okay to be open. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it is. It's tough though. I will admit there's probably other listeners out there that struggle with it, and they're hesitant to ask for help or to reach out to someone, and that's completely understandable. But I will say, at least from my perspective, right, and it sounds like you feel the same way, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I was pretty close myself, and I can't even remember what happened, but I just had a brief moment of clarity that made me think, like, if I go, I have 4 children that lose their father. I have 4 children who need me, and I kind of turned it around. I still struggle. I still have dark days. Not as many as I used to, but, it's okay, man. I call people. I have a therapist now, and I have this podcast, like this platform, and being willing and open to share. And it's weird to share with the world, not just my group of people that are in my life, has been therapeutic. It's been an eye-opener. It's allowed me to retrospectively look into my own life and my own thoughts and realize, like, I always thought I was alone. And then I hear stories like yours, or, James Rice's story, or, a plethora, even like Phil Penman telling about his story with the 9/11 and dealing with it. Man, we're all in the same boat. And the fact that we have a place now where we can all share our story and let others know, like, hey, I'm as alpha comes, and I talk to people. I'm here for people. It's okay. It's okay to let your emotion out and let your feelings out, because they do matter. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Of course.
So after that, you were in Toronto still. Mm-hmm. You were in Toronto for another year.
I was just in Toronto for a few more months after that. That was kind of the turning point for me to leave the CFL. So that happened in August. CFL season ended in November, and I moved home, and I was done. Okay. Ultimately done living apart from my wife because she lived in LA at the time. I knew I had to make some changes in my life and my career if I was going to have some sanity. And that's kind of what led me to go to the private sector and working for Mamba Sports Academy, even though ultimately when I started the journey of becoming a sports performance coach, that was something that I did not want to do at all. I didn't want to go into the private industry. I didn't want to do anything remotely related to it. But I had to make that decision, for one, my mental health, and also for my marriage.
Well, it looks like you made the right choice. What was it like working at the Mamba Academy?
It was great. One, great facilities at the time. you're getting some of the best athletes, opportunity to work with some of the top athletes in the world in their respective sports. We had basketball guys come in. I still remember to this day, it was kind of surreal. I had a training session. Whenever I was there and Aaron Donald was in town, he would come in, work for me. And for those of your listeners who are not familiar, Aaron Donald recently retired. He's a defensive tackle, or was a defensive tackle for the LA Rams. And he arguably is one of the, if not the best defensive tackle ever. Anyways, he would come in and train with me. We built a relationship over the years from when I worked with him on the Rams. And he and a couple of guys were in there training, and LeBron comes in, and it becomes kind of like a pissing contest, but not in that way. Where like they were not competing with each other, but it was more of like one alpha and another alpha in the room. They both take their shirts off. They're getting after it, and it's just a lot of testosterone in the room, but it was a great training environment. I mean, you get to see two guys at the top of their game, two guys who are in the conversation of greatest of all time for their respective sports, training and just feeding off that energy. And those were the kind of things that I got to experience while I was there.
That's so cool. Like, I couldn't even imagine having that kind of, just that eliteness in the same room, because there is no question. Professional athletes, NFL, NBA, NHL, CFL, they are the elite of the elite.
They're very gifted.
Yeah, exactly. So after, what year did photography come into your life? Like, when did you find the camera?
Okay, well, I will say that I first found the iPhone camera years ago when iPhones first started becoming a thing, right? But I never took it seriously. I just loved taking pictures of food and all these different things. And it kind of leads into what I do today and why I do photography. But I never really had a formal camera until, I'm trying to think, 2008 was the first time I had a camera. And that wasn't really serious. It was just, your typical Nikon you could pick up at Costco. And the reason I got it was at the time I was into going to dog shows and I wanted to take pictures of my dogs. That quickly fell off when I stopped going to dog shows. And I'd say the resurgence and the real start to my photography happened in 2020. So typical COVID story. My birthday was in April. You're in LA, pretty strict quarantine life. And so I was able to get a camera at the time. I believe the X100V had just come out or was shortly coming out. And so instead of getting that, I went and got the F because that was easier to access. And I remember going through like 3,000 shots in the first month, like just shooting anything and everything. And like, arguably they all sucked. But what was cool about it was at the time, I was training a gentleman by the name of Todd Gurley, who was running back in the NFL. And I would go over to his place and we train, hang out, ended up going hiking quite a bit with him because we lived one exit away from each other and there was a big old hiking trail where I was at. I ended up meeting his friend, a rapper by the name of YG. And we all kind of became this COVID circle of friends. Like that was our little bubble of training. We'd watch him play basketball and I got to practice my photography with these people that other people view as like celebrities or elite athletes. And they're used to having the camera around. And so that kind of helped me get started with just trying different things. And that's ultimately where that journey started for me.
That's such a cool experience, man. So when I've looked at your photos. I mean, I obviously follow the work that you're doing, and you have an angle you like to shoot at. It's really cool. How did you find and hone in on what you really enjoyed shooting? I mean, there's so many genres in the photography space, right?
Yeah, there are. And I think I take the same approach now to photography that I do in my own professional career. So in strength and conditioning, sports performance, there are so many different angles. You can be a data analyst. You can be a specialist in like old school Olympic training. using all the modern methods, whatever it may be. And people usually dive down rabbit holes and they stick to these little niches. For me, I pride myself in being a generalist, being just good enough at everything to get myself in the door, and then being able to have the conversations with people in those different areas to get better at what I do. And so with photography, I actually thought about this yesterday. It's just ultimately what I'm trying to do is to tell my story. And the way I describe it is, photography has different meanings for different people. And for me, the first exposure I truly had to photography is looking back at old slides that my father took back in the 80s, right, when I was a young kid. And just, even though I don't remember having photos taken of me, seeing the background, seeing what he's taking photos of sparks a memory for me, even if it's not the same memory that's in that photo. And so for me now with photography, ultimately, I want to be able to share a story. And that story is, for me, like, I know I'm rambling here, but ultimately how I want to be remembered. So I think a lot about death and legacy. And for me, if I were to pass away today or tomorrow, when people look at my photos, I don't need them to look at it and be like, oh, that's a great piece of art, piece of work, like whatever. What I want them to look at is see a picture. Like if you look at my Instagram feed now and you see a picture of Paris, I want you to look at it and see it and remind you of when you've been there, if you've had the chance to go. Or if not, of a story someone told you of when they went to Paris. Or it builds intrigue in you wanting to go. So I like to just show my life. The photos of the hot air balloons, that's up in Yountville. I don't go chasing hot air balloons. That is just a natural part of my life. Once a month at least, I'll drive up to Yountville to get coffee in the morning. And it just so happens that the best time to get coffee at this spot is when the hot air balloons are launching. But it's allowed me to build these little pieces and share aspects of my life that hopefully when people look at them, they think about maybe the first time they've been in a hot air balloon, or someone's told them a story about a hot air balloon, or we're talking about San Francisco. There are a lot of photographers out here that take way better pictures of San Francisco. But I think when you look at my picture, hopefully it sparks like, oh, I was there at that spot. And this is, I'm just trying to make it more relatable so that when it's all said and done, like people can look at my pictures and it reminds them of a moment either in their life or of a story I've told them.
When I look at your Instagram feed, I love it's like a diary of your life.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to, that's what I'm trying to hit.
And it hits, you can see you have your trips, your travels, but you also have music. You have, you have athletes, you have landscapes, you have architecture, you have it's just your life laid out for people to see hey, I'm just capturing these moments. And like you said, hopefully it sparks something in you. It gives you the idea to travel, to go to these places, or even your own town, just to get out and explore the town you live in. My favorite, I know people will think it's funny, but my favorite photo is I love abandoned. I love graffiti. So you have that, I think it's a Ford, and it's titled Shelter.
That's actually,
on your Instagram.
You know what? I'll tell you what, that is a Nissan Titan.
Okay.
And that was in Oakland on my way to Cameras and Coffee meet. I saw it in a parking lot. I was like, this is pretty cool. I remember that. I had, it was my first time trying to use Kodak Gold 200.
Yeah. That to me, I just love, I grew up, oh wow, it's hailing heavily if you can hear it in the background.
I can.
I grew up in a small town outside Portland, Oregon called Milwaukee. And for some reason, I was totally drawn to 80s street culture. So hip hop, graffiti, breakdancing, skateboarding, anything like that. So still to this day, anything with graffiti to me is the most beautiful thing in the world. Whether it's just a quick tag or it's a full piece, I'm hooked. And to see the contrast of the car against the wall with the pieces put up, It just draws me in because that's a real life scenario. You captured a moment that who knows that moment could be gone. That vehicle could be history now.
It is gone. I actually went and checked the last time I went to Cameras and Coffee in Oakland. Yeah, it's gone now. But yeah, I mean, you described it better than I did. The feed for me is just, I guess it ties into my day job as well. So as a sports performance coach, it's not just about giving X's and O's, exercises, prescribing different things for the athletes to get better. Ultimately, they have to trust me throughout this process. Whether it's from the first day they're getting recruited, I speak to them and their parents, to their ups and downs as a student athlete. And I think for me, what Instagram allows me to do, it's not about building a following or selling photos or anything like that. It's about sharing who I am, the things that interest me, which in turn, I think opens myself up to the athletes to see that I am human. We have things in common. Like now I had a student athlete who got a camera from her grandmother with an expired roll of film, started shooting that, is shooting film now. And it's just, we have something in common to talk about, right? So like, it allows me to relate to the student athletes and them to relate to me.
Yeah. It's cool when you have that little bit of connection that's more on a personal level. And that's what I find with every person I've had on, who I've interviewed. We talk very little about the photography anymore. We talk about the life, the story. But we always have a connection. There's always a way that it feels comfortable. It feels real. It doesn't feel like we're forcing our conversation, which we aren't. It's been very, very easy to chat. So that's neat. That's good that your students are seeing it, that they're starting to see why photography. It's a good outlet.
It is. And it gives me a chance to share the things of my life that they don't actually get to be present for. You brought up the concert pictures. If you'll notice on my feed, I don't go to concerts. I've been to concerts, but I only go to one specific artist concert, and that's YG, right? YG 400. And that's because we're friends. So there are other people. I look at their work, great concert photography. Actually, the last concert I went to at the Fox Theater in Oakland, I met a couple of photographers, and they did great stuff. I saw their photos, and it was great. But my perspective of that particular concert was the behind the scenes, being on stage, being in the dressing room, my sharing what I'm able to experience that other people don't get to be present for.
And the fact that he's your friend, you capture him in a completely different way. You're capturing, I really look into people's work when I'm looking at it, and I let it tell me a story. I know everybody who shoots, we all have a story of why we took a photo, but the biggest compliment to myself as a photographer, or as an artist in general, is when someone can tell me a story they see in an image. And that's what I see, especially when you're with YG, because you are friends. You guys know each other quite well. When you capture that moment, you're capturing a moment that other people would just be like, no, not that cool. But when you capture it, you're like, that's my homie. And you can see that connection in the images.
Thank you. That's a very odd pair, by the way. I mean, just people, very odd pair.
But sometimes you just connect. People will look at you weird and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. But man, sometimes people from two completely different aspects of life have so much in common and have such great conversations that it doesn't really matter where you started or where you're at. You're just friends. That's what's cool about life and meeting people you would never expect to be friends with.
And I think that's ultimately what Cameras and Coffee in Oakland, I'll give a big shout out to that crew, is doing for me. I started going in December. They do a monthly meetup, usually at Kinfolk Coffee Shop in downtown Oakland. And it's great because we go and we meet up. I meet so many different photographers, artists. I met someone one time that wasn't even a photographer, but got invited by a friend. We do, print exchanges. And now I'm following a bunch of people on Instagram that I really do enjoy their work. And by being able to meet them in person, it then opens the door for me to ask questions if I really want to about the technical aspect. And ultimately, that's the same thing that happens in my career. When I go to conferences or different events, I go to meet people as human beings. And then after that, like if there's a connection, then we can ask the technical aspects, like whatever it is, the lens, their kit, editing, all those things. And so for me, it's like pretty cool to meet new people, see their stories or hear about their stories and what their projects are, and then exchange ideas. And it inspires me to live my life the way I live it now.
That's amazing. That's what's crazy about it. Like I was last night, I was talking with Lucas Vanderlendy, and we had to record part 2 because we both got so distracted in part 1 just because we were like, wow, we got lots in common. So it was like, the rambles, but that's part of conversations. And that's stuff I leave in because I think it's important to see that when you're discussing, I mean, this is our first meeting, like somewhat face to face, but we can just flow and we have a conversation and a comfort level that if people just take the time to open up and look at other people's work or just say hi to people, you never know what's going to happen or what's going to come from that. Like you're saying, cameras and coffee. You're learning so many different technical aspects. You guys exchange prints. You have all these people you chat with now. And that's you putting yourself in a situation that may not have been the most comfortable. I have a hard time going to new groups of people.
It was definitely different the first time because I was like, these are all people I also have either heard of or look up their work on Instagram. And so it's like, like, should I even be here? Once again, like the imposter syndrome thing, but just like not knowing anyone is always tough. And so just always going now, I think the things I do in my career and my personal life and photography, like all intertwined, like meeting new people, trying to give someone a chance at something. And that's just, like I think the ultimate thing is giving someone a chance to like meet you or you meet them or like giving them their flowers while they're here. We hear that statement all the time, just telling them you appreciate their work, whether that's later on an Instagram message or, comments or in person.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to let you know I appreciate your work, and you do definitely deserve to be there. I just something about the way you capture stuff, man. Like I feel like I can explain the moment in every image I'm looking at, right? And I love that because it allows me to see something that you maybe didn't see. Now, I spoke to I talk about it all the time because it was probably one of my proudest moments. Was I spoke to a photo majors 9-10 class at the local fine arts school. And the teacher there, her name is Jen Eccles. She teaches the grade 9s who are fresh with cameras to not really worry about the rules. Just go out and enjoy the motions of shooting photos. And as you enjoy those motions, that's when you start to learn composition. That's when you learn, setting your f-stops and your apertures and all the other technical stuff comes. But get out and enjoy that camera first. So I'm a huge fan of the way she teaches, and more people need to teach that way. Just to bring more love into this. It's not about 10,000 followers, 20,000, 1 million followers. It's about 5 followers who love your work and you guys create a bond. I started a new hashtag. It says, I post this shit for me. Like, I don't worry about followers. I love the people that interact with me. And yeah, you have a number that's big, but I can tell you there's probably 20 people who I regularly contact, who I'm regularly there with. And that's cool because that's 20 people. If I had in front of me in a room, heck yeah, that'd be amazing. So I just want to thank you, man. Thank you for your time today.
Appreciate that. Speaking of the hashtag though, the one I use is my strength coach adventures, because ultimately that's what I'm trying to show is like my adventures through life as I'm going through, whatever it is. So it's
inspire, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun for sure. I think ultimately, it's just a constant learning experience because now, I mentioned in our previous our conversation before we got started, I just got into the world of Leica, being a Leica boy, whatever that is. And I never realized, quite frankly, just so naive in the world of photography. how, touchy of a subject it may be for some. And, diving into getting a Q2 and then eventually getting rid, like you said, the Fuji stuff, I loved it. That's what I started on. But then getting rid of it to get my first film camera, an M3, and then turning around and somehow I was able to get the MP that I have now. And who knows what else I'll add to the collection, but they're just fun tools and like a really fun experience for me. And that's ultimately what I'm looking for. It's just to have fun doing it. Like today, my Strength Coach Adventures, there is a match. Sorry, I'm using the wrong terminology, for women's soccer, right? Their first home match of the season. So I'm going to go and not a sports photographer at all, nowhere near that, but try to capture something that will remind me of this experience and be able to share with others.
That's awesome. The one thing I love Leica, and it's more than just the amazingness and the beauty of the product. It's the history and the community that Leica supports. So a lot of people are like, oh, you got a Leica, you must be rich. Well, no. Do some history, do some research of the brand, and talk to anybody who's gone to a store opening, gone to Germany, and they will all talk more about the community feel of being there than the brand itself or the camera that they have, like their M11. I want a Q2, like, or a Q3. That's like my next jump, right? And it'll happen when it happens. But I don't understand the hate for the brand. Look at the legacy of the brand before you start bashing it.
I think that's just the culture we live in today, right? The hate for different things, thinking back to when I first started golfing 2 years ago, right? I dove into it, went head first, went out, played golf, and a month later, I joined a country club. Now, I'm blessed to be in that position. Don't get me wrong. But the hate I received from even people I thought were like good friends was surprising, but also not. Like it's my life, my financial situation. Like there's no need for you to, just share anger and hate that I'm able to do these things, even though I just started it. And I think that's just, unfortunately, the world we live in these days is the fact that, we rush to decisions about other people and the life they're living. And that's why I do enjoy going to things like Cameras and Coffee or going on photo walks with people I don't know, because instead of just rushing to a decision about, their niche or the gear or whatever it is, getting to know them as a person helps me appreciate their work that much more. Because ultimately, like when I see a good photo, like I'm not looking to see what it was made with, but I think a lot of people just want to rush to that just because in general, that's where we are as a world and a culture right now, just quick to judge and quick to hate things that maybe we're not familiar with or have some, maybe because we don't have one, we're upset about it, or maybe it just sucks and we just want to express that. But ultimately, it's still the person's choice to use whatever equipment they have or want to use.
Yeah, I agree. I watch all the hate all the time and I just shake my head. I mean, I don't look at Canon shooters or Nikon shooters and be like, oh my God, you shoot that. Like, who cares? It's a tool, because the real creativity is in the brain, and whatever makes you get that creativity unlocked, use that tool. Right? Like, don't worry about what others think.
Yeah, it's definitely that. And for me too, it's about spread love, not hate. Right? Like ultimately, like I follow photographers on Instagram or just on other avenues. And quite frankly, I'll admit, I don't love all of their work. I don't love every single shot they take, all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to sit there and say, this sucks. I don't like that. But when I do love it, I'm going to, put it out there into the universe. I like, people deserve to hear that their stuff is loved. They don't need to hear the negativity, even if it's not my favorite piece, or maybe I don't like the edit. Okay, cool. Like, that's something they chose to do because that's what they like. And they're not, ultimately they shouldn't be doing it for me. I'm just a number, or a person on the screen. And so I think that's just one lesson to be learned. It's just, and I've had to learn it too in my own career. It's like, don't criticize what other people are doing. with their programming or, how they train their athletes. And so same thing in photography, like let you do you and then give you your flowers and appreciation when I see something I really do appreciate.
Yeah. Let people find their footing. They're experimenting. Everybody, doesn't matter if we're new photographer or we're a 30-year veteran, 40-year veteran. Every time you post a photo is still an experiment. Unless somebody's so set in the way they edit or shoot. I mean, my feed is all over the place because that's how I feel. I capture whatever I see. I capture moments in time that'll never be there again. And then I post them how I saw them in my head. Whether that's super saturated, or black and white, dark and moody. It's just the way I do. And I don't expect people to love everything. But judging people on what we see and, it's weird. Like, let's just be cool to everybody. Just be cool. Like, just be a nice person. It's a weird concept nowadays because everybody wants that social status. Look at the X100 line. Like, you can't get one of those cameras. Even if you begged right now, you couldn't get one of those cameras. And it's all about, it's a TikTok thing or it's a social media thing. Somebody posted it and now it's the hot thing. Contax camera, like film camera. Same thing. It used to be $100. Now they're multi-thousands because, a celebrity posted that was the camera of choice. But that's cool. That's what they love. And it drives a market and it helps people. And that's what the world's about. We have ups, downs, sideways. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride and experience it and capture it the way you see it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's where I'm going to go with my photography. I don't, I've sold a couple pieces, but I don't market that I do that. I mean, people reach out and ask for a print of something that, once again, touches them or sparks a memory for them. And that's, and ultimately that's what photography is going to be for me. I want to continue documenting my life, my strength coach adventures. And, when it's all said and done and I'm no longer on this earth, if somebody could take a look at my feed or my friends that have prints, take a look at it and remember a story, a memory or whatever, then I've done what I ultimately sought to do in photography.
That's exactly it, man. Longevity, someone can read something from what you do. There's no better way to end everything. You're not here, but people still are inspired by the work you do. And that's important. So awesome. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to connect?
Best place to connect is Instagram, j.aggabao. That is my Instagram handle. I'm pretty good at responding to people. And if not, I am slowly working on putting a website together. It's up, but it's still not updated all the time. It's j-aggabao.com. So www.j-aggabao.com. There you go. I was trying to remember that, but yeah, they can find me on there. The other thing too is if you're local to the Bay Area, shout out to Cameras and Coffee. Follow them on Instagram, definitely, because that's where I've met people. And if people want to meet up or do photo walks or do some random photo adventures, I'm always down for that.
Awesome. I will put all the links to your socials and your website in the description. Any final words of wisdom you want to share with people? Something you learned in your journey?
In my journey in life. Man. I think my last words of wisdom is, it's corny, but treat others as you want to be treated, and be conscientious of how you make other people feel, because you never know when your interaction is going to be your last interaction with somebody else. I think, ultimately just trying to make sure that the people you care about feel valued. Don't hesitate to reach out, text, answer a phone call, even if you're busy or tired. Just really take all the little things and appreciate them, because, it as morbid as it is, like, we never know when our time's going to end. So, you just gotta appreciate and give people flowers while they're here.
Couldn't have said it better myself, brother. I appreciate it, man. And just to put it at ease, you definitely deserve to be on this. You definitely deserve to share your story with more people. There's a lot of value in what you shared with me today. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of your work, man. I could read stories in it. I love that. I love when something resonates with me. And you as a person, you're a good dude, and I welcome you to my circle, part of the Phys family. And I look forward to watching you continue to grow and shooting the shit and just having a good time as friends.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Really do.
Yeah. So, keep inspiring, man. Keep inspiring the youth. Keep inspiring the people that you work with on a daily basis in that elite level, because those kids are the future of sport. And anything I can do, if you have any people you would love to see me have on, or even share this with your kids in your class. If you want a pre-done copy, I'm in. Just let me know and I'll get it over to you. Because hearing your words, man, maybe it's something you don't say and that they hear you talk about, but hearing what you've gone through, where you've been, how hard you work to get to where you are, but how much you love what they're doing and how much pride you have in helping them keep going. And that can change a kid's outlook on everything.
Oh, it definitely can. Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I appreciate this time today. Enjoy shooting the soccer match.
Soccer match, yep. I have to remind myself sometimes. Yep.
Yeah. And keep inspiring the youth, dude. I mean, without inspiration of people to inspire, the world's a pretty dark place. So let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep putting smiles on people's faces, sharing our adventures, sharing our journeys. And whenever I make it to the Bay Area, we'll definitely get together and we'll go do a photo walk and catch up, do a live broadcast. Just to let people know, like, it's the real deal. I don't bring people on that I don't want to learn from. I don't want to hear their story. I'm pretty picky on who I ask to come on. And everybody who comes on has something in their journey that I've seen in the way they capture photos or the way a photos talk to me, that I really think the world deserves to hear. And the podcast has been amazing. It's introduced me to so many creative people. It's given me some of the coolest friends. I talk to more people on here than I do the people that I've known for 30 years. So I have nonstop text circles with people, and it's hilarious. It's fun. And it just shows, like, doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can make friends everywhere, and everybody has the same outlook. So again, thank you, brother. Enjoy your day. And, this will probably be out at the end of September.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
It was worth every second, my friend. You just stop selling yourself short. You're doing big things. And I don't just mean photography. I mean with helping others and helping the youth grow. That's huge for me. I see so many youth struggle, and it breaks my heart. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for sharing how you share, and anything the Life of Phys can do to help support, inspire, anything for any of the athletes. They need words of wisdom. My mouth never stops. So we can make it happen. But right now, keep inspiring, brother. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE_OF_PHYS, or on the internet at www.lifeofphys.com. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.